So yet again, the plot thickens. The news has broken in the past hour or so that Conor Benn admits that he did fail 2 drugs tests. We'll get to that, but I just want to say quickly that I have to be honest, I'm getting a little bit tired, a little bit bored of this whole saga because it is just such a mess. But it's not stopping me from making a video anyway, because we have to get the algorithm on smash, as the kids would say. So yeah, let's talk about this. If you Google Conor Benn, you'll see that there are headlines, and it's a little bit clickbaity because you see the first 3 words, Conor Benn admits, and you think, oh, he's finally coming clean about actually taking whatever. It's not that. What it is Conor Benn has supposedly spoken to one of the major tabloids. I think it might be the Daily Mirror or something like that. The Sun, that's what it says in this Boxing Scene article. And it basically starts with, in a stunning interview with the Sun, welterweight contender Conor Benn openly admitted that he failed 2 VADA drugs tests that were months apart. And so that's nothing new. We know about this. However, this puts into perspective some things that, once again, we probably already knew, but we kind of hear it from the horse's mouth now. So, firstly, just one thing I want to address is in the articles that you can find. I've looked at the Boxing Scene article and the Boxing News 24 article. There's quite a few quotes from Conor Benn. I'm not going to read through here because that's too long. But he basically maintains his innocence, and he says, you know, was the effect of, I'm not stupid. Why would I sign up to VADA testing and then take a substance? Also, there were trace amounts. What benefit will I get from trace amounts? I'm innocent. Am I a serial liar? Well, I take issue with some of these things that Conor Benn has said. And as far as I know, they are quotes from him. I haven't seen video proof, but the article at least presents them as quotes. So assuming that he did actually say them. Firstly, with Conor Benn taking or claiming, you know, asking the question, am I stupid? Am I a serial liar? Well, firstly, Mr. Conor Benn, we've only recently found out about these 2 failed drugs tests. But it says here, the urine from the drugs test administered by VADA were administered on the 25th of July and September the 1st. And that's a fairly long time ago, and you have to imagine the results of those tests came back fairly shortly afterwards. But there was no news of this. There was no news of any failed drugs tests until the first primary leak, 2-3 days before the Chris Eubank Jr. fight was scheduled to go ahead. So yeah, Conor Benn, he may not be a liar, but he's not exactly honest, is he? Because there was no news of this. There were no headlines back way before the fight week for the Eubank Jr. fight. And Conor Benn seems to have known that he did fail that test. And so it really goes to show, like, I don't think there are many people who are trying to fight Conor Benn's case for any reason. But if there are, yeah, Conor Benn is not doing himself any favours here. And yeah, a lot of people have brought this up, and I mean, I'd like to think it doesn't really need reiterating, but clearly it does. Just because Conor Benn or anyone else in any kind of situation like this, just because they claim to be innocent doesn't mean they are. I mean, it really kind of, it's a bit of a head scratcher when people look at the reaction of a fighter in this case who's failed a drugs test. And the first thing he says is, I'm innocent, I didn't do it. Oh, therefore he must actually be innocent. How often do you see fighters fail drugs tests and say, yeah, it was me. I'm not going to argue. Yeah, I took this. I intended to cheat. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't. So, not that I need to preach to you guys, but it does really blow my mind that, oh, he said he's innocent, he must be. You know, case closed. It's quite funny. It's quite laughable. And also, another point I want to touch on is Conor Benn talks about trace amounts. And he's like, okay, he's conceded, he's admitted that he's failed the test. And he talks about, the only reason behind this failed test, it must be a contamination, because only trace amounts were found, only the tiniest of traces. That's a quote from Conor Benn. Well, yeah, okay. That's still, just because there are trace amounts, which you'd think are insignificant amounts, that doesn't mean it's insignificant as a whole. It means at that point, when the test was taken, there were insignificant amounts, there were trace amounts, but that is in that moment in time. What about the weeks prior? What about the months prior? If you had taken the drug test then, or like did the same drug test but weeks or months earlier, what would the amounts be of clomiphene in this case? They could have been up the wazoo, through the roof, sky high. And then we're talking about a real performance enhancing effect. So some of these things that Conor Benn is saying, if you read in between the lines and you take it in context, which you should always do as best as you can, this doesn't help his case at all. And if anything, it's really just like at the bare minimum, it's an admission of dishonesty, not because he lied, but because he didn't say anything. And these things are now about, oh, it's trace amounts, oh, it's, I'm not a serial liar, that kind of stuff. It doesn't really mean much. And so, as I say, there's only so much one can say in this situation until you kind of just rehash what you've said in the past. This isn't a good look for Conor Benn. And he talks about how realistically he could go elsewhere and fight under a different sanctioning body or governing body in, say, the new year. And that kind of links back to something that Eddie Hearn has been saying recently in interviews, where, especially in fight week, around the time when the news first broke, he was saying Conor Benn is cleared to fight. Conor Benn is cleared to fight right now. Well, yeah, Eddie, he is cleared to fight, but not under the British Border Boxing control. So, these promoters especially, but even the fighters, you can't always take what they say at face value. Because in that case, yeah, Conor Benn could have fought elsewhere. And that what implies his innocence? No, not in the case of boxing, where you have different territories which have different rules and regulations, and if you're banned in one, you can fight in the other. It doesn't really mean anything. So it's all this, is it even subliminal at this point? It seems pretty blatant. It seems like blatant dishonesty, blatant lies, and withholding the truth. So yeah, I just thought I'd break that down for you guys. Not that you really need any explanation. I'm sure you guys are up to date with the news and you're intelligent. A lot of you. You can kind of see through these things just like I can. But yeah, for now, oh boy, another Conor Benn video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Leave it all down below and I'll get back to you. But for now, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.